Hey y'all, hi. So a couple of weeks ago on my video, Trendy Fashions I've Been Peeping, I'll link that in the cards in case you want to check it out. On my video, Trendy Fashions I've Been Peeping, I got, as I so often do, a thought-provoking comment, and it provoked so much thought that I'm making a whole video about one of the concepts. Michelle, in this comment, said, "The dramatic tension in your fashion life," she was talking to me. She said, "Hannah, the dramatic tension in your fashion life is between the desire to buy something and love it forever and your natural curiosity about new ideas and ways of thinking." I read that and I was like, Michelle, longevity versus experimentation in fashion. How do we work with these two concepts and desires? How do we strike the balance? I've been doing some writing and doing some thinking, and we're going to talk it over today. If this is your first time to my channel, then welcome. I'm Hannah. I'm a writer. I also make these YouTube videos about aesthetics and consumerism. And if you like this one, I hope you'll subscribe. Let's get into the meat of the video. So I chewed on it and chewed on it. I was like, how do we reconcile the desire for longevity? And by that, I mean longevity of one's garments, longevity of the pieces that one buys. How do we reconcile that desire with the process of experimentation, which is, I think, also healthy and desirable and required for a life lived in the space of aesthetics? Because, people change over time. Things change over time. Our lives change. The world changes. So fluidity, flexibility, and experimentation are constants. And yet I'm over here all the time talking about longevity, buying something for life, making sure you're going to love it forever, making sure it's going to last forever. So it boils down to this question, the actionable question. I think the crux of the matter when it comes to building a wardrobe of fewer, nicer things. When you're in that moment where you're making a purchase or you're about to make a purchase, when you're trying to decide what to buy, when you're trying to decide, is something worth it? How do you strike the balance between the impulse of experimentation and the desire for longevity? And the answer that I came up with, and I'll expound on the answer, right? I'll draw out the answer. That's what the whole video is. But the answer that I came up with really does compact down to something super clear and memorable. And it's this: genuinely try for longevity. Genuinely try, but don't be too hard on yourself. Those are the two important aspects that form the answer, in my opinion, to this conundrum. But neither one is as simple as it sounds. So let's tease both of them out. Step one, genuinely try for longevity. It's harder than it sounds, especially in this day and age, especially in this fashion climate. I can tell when I'm not doing it. I can tell when I'm not genuinely trying for longevity. And I think that, like knowing what it looks like when you're not actually holding yourself to that standard, helps, because then you can catch yourself in the act. I can tell that I'm not genuinely trying when things in the purchasing process or the shopping process, when things get a little foggy, a little speedy, when I'm making a purchase from a place of putting a band-aid on feelings and not taking time to think through all of its aspects, when I'm making the purchase out of boredom or out of pressure of some kind. It's going to be internal pressure or external pressure. When I'm saying to myself, it could work. It could work. When I'm saying it could work, but I don't feel that sense of rightness about the thing. And I have a whole video about it could work. I'll link that in the cards too. It's the 3 red flags when you're shopping. It's like, I know that I want to buy garments that I will love and wear forever. I say it all the time. I think about it a lot. I know that that's what I want, but in the moment, in the shopping moment, that desire has kind of slipped backstage. So I'm not genuinely trying to do that. I just want to theoretically, right? That's what it feels like when I'm not genuinely trying. It's like that desire becomes theoretical. And if I can catch myself in the act, if I with my conscious mind, with my prefrontal cortex, if I can catch myself in the act of failing to genuinely try, if I can catch myself in the act of making a purchase from that state of mind where the desire for longevity has slipped backstage, then it's like a switch flips. And suddenly I remember my principles, and then it makes it really easy not to buy the thing. Or in some cases, it immediately clarifies that I should buy the thing and stop agonizing over it. And that's really useful too. I think a lot of us have these two modes, or we have our usual mode, which is being careful, kind of paying close attention. And then we have the propensity to slip out of that mode into a kind of speedy, foggy, reactionary, making decisions based on trying to put a band-aid on immediate bad feelings mode in life in general, but also in shopping specifically, we kind of have these two modes. So genuinely trying to make purchases that will have longevity in your life, that themselves, the items themselves will last through several washes, they'll wash and wear well. Remembering all of those principles, staying in that mode, that's number one. That's what it means to genuinely try. And again, a little bit harder and potentially a little bit more complex psychologically than it might sound. So when you're making a purchase, genuinely try and don't be too hard on yourself. This is an important part for me that I employ. It's part of my everyday reality of trying to build a wardrobe of fewer, nicer things. And I haven't really figured out a way to talk about it, I think, until now. It's come up here or there, but I haven't really put it all down in my notes and really brought it to you. We can't predict the future. Life is unpredictable and fluid. Not so unpredictable and fluid that we shouldn't try to buy clothes that will last for years and years or that will last for life. Not like so unpredictable that there's no sense in using the buy it for life principle as a guide. But all it ever can be is a guide. It can't be like a trait or a measure of virtue. If you aspire to only ever buy things ever that will become permanent fixtures in your life and last forever without fail, and that you will love forever without fail, and you want to be a person who has a 100% success rate at that, well, I'm not saying it's impossible to be that person, but you really do have to forfeit any amount of experimentation or evolution to be that person, by definition, because experimentation involves taking a chance. And that means that there's a chance that you will be wrong. And evolution involves having your tastes change and having some things fall out of favor. Hopefully not like everything, like whole wardrobes falling out of favor every season, but just a little bit of slow evolution and things dropping off here and there. So you have to allow for a little room to take a chance that doesn't pan out and a little room for yourself to change as you grow and not beat yourself up on those occasions when that results in a purchase that you were wrong about or something that you liked for a while but that you don't end up loving for life. And the hope is that if you genuinely try, if you really align yourself with part one, genuinely trying, then those occasions, those times when you take a chance and you're wrong, or those times when something falls out of favor with you, they will be fewer and further between than they would have been if you weren't genuinely trying. The natural effect of part one, genuinely try for longevity, is that you're much, much likelier to see the forest for the trees on any given occasion of any given purchase. Meaning you may still take chances, but you'll take them in good faith with your future self, thinking it through and really hoping, really believing actually that it's something that you will continue to love and that will hold up over time. That way you've given yourself the best shot by really thinking it through, by really trying. You've given yourself the best shot at it being a good choice to buy the shoes or whatever, as opposed to making unexamined choices that just scratch an itch in the moment. Part one, genuinely try. It takes away all of those itch scratchy purchases and leaves you only with the good faith efforts. But for most of us, even when we boil it down to only just those good faith efforts, among those purchases, some will be more sure things and some will be more exciting and less sure things. Like this shirt, for example, when I bought it, I just loved it and I didn't really know why, and it went against all of my principles except for quality, because it's from Doen and they, make heirloom pieces and it's 100% cotton, right? So it washes and wears beautifully and I knew that. Stylistically, it went against everything. Color, structure, principle, print. But I just felt the spark. It was a highly experimental. It was a good faith try in that I really thought it through and I was like, it has a shot. It has a shot at being something that I'll continue to love and continue to wear for a long time, if not forever. But of purchases that year, a couple of years ago, of all the purchases that I made that were good faith efforts that had a really really strong shot at me loving them forever, it was on the highly experimental side. It was like the furthest along on the spectrum towards the highly experimental side. And it ended up panning out. But of those less sure things, of those highly experimental good faith purchases, some of them will inevitably be failures. You know, garments that you thought you would love and don't, garments that you just don't really bond with for one reason or another, things that you thought would wash and wear really well, would hold up, but they just don't end up holding up because they're not as well constructed as you thought they would be. How could you have known that in advance? It's disappointing when that happens, but the overall instances of that happening, when all of the choices that you make, all of your purchases are good faith efforts, the overall instances of the failures are going to be way fewer than they would be if you weren't making all of your purchases mindfully. And if one wants to have an evolving and experimental relationship with fashion, there just has to be some room for error on the longevity front, which means there's nothing to be gained from punishing yourself for those few failures, especially because all of them are likely to be really good lessons for the self in one way or another. So this has all been a lot of talk, a lot of philosophy, but let's boil it down to something actionable advice. When you are about to make a purchase, ask yourself, where does this purchase fall on the spectrum from experimental to absolutely guaranteed to be a hit in my life and to last for years and for me to love it and wear it for years to come? From experimental to guarantee, where does this item fall on the spectrum? And then once you figure out where it is on the spectrum, ask yourself, am I okay with its position on the spectrum relative to cost? Like relative to how much money I'm spending on it. So to put a finer point on it, if it's a highly experimental item, is it also very expensive? And is that okay with you, with your budget? Also, does it have resale value? If it's an absolute guaranteed sure thing, maybe that means that a higher price tag is more okay with you because you feel much more confident that it's going to have that longevity. Then ask yourself, am I okay with its position on the spectrum relative to lifestyle? So the way that you are trying to shop, your habits, how you interact with your stuff, the amount of stuff that you are trying to have right now, and maybe whether or not you feel like it's something that's going to fill a hole in your wardrobe, like how much you feel like you need it, how much it feels like it fits, or is it just the cherry on top of a part of your wardrobe that's already pretty healthy? Those kinds of questions. Are you okay with it being a highly experimental purchase if you also already have enough shoes for the season, you know? Or maybe it's a relatively experimental, but you also really, really need boots. And so that is added incentive for you to take that risk. Another way to think of it, like another piece of actionable advice, is to try to keep a balance in any given season or in any given year between the high risk purchases and the low risk purchases. So if your last 3 clothing purchases have been good faith tries at buying for longevity, but they've all been on the experimental end of the spectrum, and then you come across a 4th exciting, somewhat experimental item that also seems like it's likely to have longevity, maybe consider passing on that one and saving the rest of your budget for something that's less of a risk, something that you're more absolutely guaranteed to love for life. Likewise, if you've only bought safe things for the past, year, and then you come across a weird blouse that thrills you to your soul and you don't know why, but it's stressing you out a little because it feels highly experimental, even though it has all of the qualities that point to longevity, other than maybe the weirdness. Live a little, let yourself take a chance and grow a little and see if it surprises you. For me, asking myself where something falls on the spectrum from safe to risky, again, remembering that anything, if I'm even considering it, if it's even on that spectrum, is something that I genuinely hope to love for years. Asking myself where an item really falls clarifies a lot and helps me keep the balance. Thanks so much, Michelle, for your intriguing comment. There were a lot of other interesting things in there, but this is the one little tidbit of thought that I latched onto. And I do think that it's helping to address threads that have come up over and over again throughout the years and throughout the comment sections from many of you. So thank you to all of you who have kind of brought up an aspect of this. I hope it gives us all more to chew on. Very excited to see what you all have to say in the comments down below. Thank you for being here. And don't forget to take extra good care of yourself so you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.